Hey, this is Stephen Amell, and you are listening to Tomorrow's Legends, the podcast. Don't fail your city.
During a trip through time, the Legends were forced to land the Waverider in Blue Valley, Nebraska, where they discovered a young superhero.
Yes.
About to take flight.
That's cool.
Who are you?
I'm Stargirl.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. Welcome to Anger Valley, where all it takes is a little too much stimulation and you can lose your cool, too. All bets were off this week as tempers flared and people got hurt. And I'm strapping on my boxing gloves, getting ready to go, because I am the dancing like lightning, sting like a... lightning? The Flash.
And I'm glad my ring shields me against ice attacks, X-Force 11.
And now, here are your hosts, the Scarlet Speedster himself, the Flash, the Maid of Mischief Harley Quinn, and the Blue Beacon of Hope, X-Force 11.
Hello, Legends.
Hello, Gideon. And everyone's probably just cluing in. What? No Harley again?
Yeah.
It's just the boys tonight. Again. What, 3 weeks in a row now?
Yeah, unfortunately.
So I was thinking about that, and I thought, you know, she's acting an awful lot like Cindy Berman.
Oh.
Just coming and going, just disappearing without a trace, without a clue. You know, not letting the school know where she is, not letting work know. She just disappears.
So did Cindy kidnap Harley, or did Harley kidnap Cindy? That's the question.
Oh, that is a good question. And the one that I have is, I wonder if Harley is growing dragon scale skin.
Ooh, I hope not.
Maybe that's why she's not here. See, now that she's been gone for 3 weeks, we get to have some fun with her for a bit.
Yeah, I was going to make a joke about her missing the bus back to Blue Valley, but, you know.
That's a good one, too. She missed the bus because Cindy has her.
Yeah, there you go.
or her dragon skin, yeah. Cool, we got some news for you this week.
We interrupt this podcast for a special report.
And maybe I should be playing one of those violins, that crying violin song. I don't know. We got some bad news, guys. Not that... I'm pretty sure most of our listeners know about this now, especially the ones following the Facebook group, but news broke on Monday that Season 3 of Stargirl is going to be it. It got canceled. It got canceled recently. At least the public news came out recently this week that it got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like, just by reading all the articles and everything that's come out, it sounds like they knew very early on that it was canceled, and they just could not say anything about it. But the creator, Jeff Johns, came out with a statement saying, with all the brewing changes at the network, we were aware this was possibly the last season. So we wrote with that in mind and have delivered what I believe to be the best season of Stargirl yet, with complete creative closure. So let's talk about this for a little bit, because I also want to throw in there, because we also now know, like I said, as articles have been coming out about it, that they actually filmed 2 separate endings to cover the possibility that they might get picked up for a 4th season. So they actually filmed 2 endings. Mm-hmm. And that just makes me curious as all heck. But I want to see them both. I want to see what way they would have gone.
Yeah.
And what way we're going to get.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about this here, because the writing it seemed like it was on the wall. Like they promised us September 1st we would know, and they've waited until November, like essentially November 1st, like 2 months later, and they're letting us know, and they knew all along, so they could properly write a good ending and properly write the show's finale, which means they knew a long time ago, because this show, the entire season is done. It's filmed, it's wrapped, they're finished. They've been done for a long time.
Yeah.
So they've had this news. They've been keeping it quiet all this time, which is kind of upsetting to know. But I want to know, what is it behind the cancellation? Is it the lack in viewership? Is it the fact that the takeover by Nexstar and all that, they just don't care about superhero shows at all? They're killing everything. We're going to talk about Superman and Lois in a second here. It bothers me because Stargirl is such a young show. It's just getting itself going. Our stars aren't even out of school yet. They're just starting to form I mean, they've got their team, but as we'll talk about in this episode, they're just finally starting to come around and learn what it's like to be a team, or what it means to be a team, and be there for each other. And we're just getting all of that, and they're barely going to be able to get started, barely going to be able to get off their feet and become a superhero team and really take off and go running and get some good stories going. And now the show's got to end. And that, to me, is really, really disappointing.
Yeah, I think as far as filming goes, I think Jeff Johns is smart enough to know, and like you said, they did film 2 endings, but whether they knew, like, I think they had an inkling and wanted to be prepared. I don't think they knew from the get-go, like, that this was going to be the final season. I think he was just prepared and said, okay, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to film both endings, and then based on what happens, we're going to go for it because everything is so up in the air. And I think CW is going to be just totally different next year. I think it's they're skewing to their demographic, which is 58 years old, but even with some of their choices otherwise, they're kind of hedging bets. They're not picking up back half of several seasons, so some things are just going to be 13 episodes this season, which is fine. I mean, CW did that with iZombie. It did it with Legends for years, where it was shorter seasons, where it's like one thing in the fall, another thing in the spring. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think there was just so much uncertainty that Jeff Johns, being the creator that he is, wanted to leave the audience with some closure. And I agree that it would be good to see more seasons, but honestly, I think we're in that perfect storm where the Discovery HBO Max merger kind of leaves it where I don't know if we're going to get stuff moved over. I mean, Stargirl started on HBO Max, or actually the streaming service, DC Universe, but I just don't see it moving over there. I would love that, but I just don't see it happening. And I agree, we're just starting to get to see this group working together. And what I'm hoping for the ending that they did is, okay, we're coming together, we're working on being a team, and let's move forward, leaving things open so that we've got this team continuing on, even though we're not particularly getting to see it live action. So that's what I hope is, it doesn't have to wrap everything up, but it can leave some things open to say this team goes on, even though that we don't see those adventures. So
okay, so these are your hopes. I want to save the speculation for the very end of the show on how it will end, because I think our friend Perry White left a Facebook message. He wanted us to cover how will it end. He started asking these questions for us, or maybe it was in our Patreon chat. He was asking.
Yeah, it's a Patreon chat.
So we'll save. And I wanted to put that in our Patreon bonus stuff, but I think that's a good question to cover generally for everybody, for our regular listeners too. So we're going to use that to end this episode on with some speculation, Gary. But so to go along with your hope, my hope is that because they knew ahead of time and they were able to write an ending, that this isn't going to be a rushed ending, because the first 2 seasons were build up the entire episode and then finish it off in 10 minutes of the finale episode. And then we have, a few minutes of closure and leading into the next season. I don't want that for this finale. They better not leave everyone hanging. We're wondering what's going on, what's going to happen. There's 5 minutes left in the episode, and they wrap it all up super fast and, fade to black. And we're like, I don't want that. I want a really good close the door on this show, but like you said, leave the windows open so we can still see what's coming in the future, kind of thing. Yeah. Let's have it written out and fleshed out nicely, not a rushed ending, please. That's my hope.
Yeah, I just don't know that you're going to get that. What I'm betting is going to happen is, like the previous 2 seasons and like Superman has done, we get a closure to our season, partway through the season finale, and then instead of setting up next season, we'll get closure on some things. But I'm still betting that 50% of the episode will be, that as opposed to, just the last couple minutes. So I don't know that when they say ending, I don't think they necessarily mean like the entire episode. Yeah. What I'm saying is we'll get closure, but I'm still expecting it to be, which we don't particularly like, the first third of the episode is closing out the season, and then the rest of it is, our closure. So I don't think it's going to be like 80% closing off the season and 20%, I think it's going to be what it's been the last 2 seasons, but instead of keying up for next season, we're going to get some closure for this
it'll be the big final fight taking up the first chunk of the episode, and the last chunk will be the closure we get.
Right.
So, and probably that's what they wrote 2 different endings for. There's probably the big fight. The original ending was somebody gets hurt, somebody turns bad, somebody turns good, somebody dies. Then we get the lead up to the next season, and then they're like, okay, big fight, somebody hurts, somebody dies, whatever. Now we gotta wrap. Let's have a funeral. Let's have people moving out of town. Let's say the team moves off to join to the GSA headquarters or whatever. And we're gonna get a different closure. That's the only part that changed. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So
there you go. Early speculation for you, right there.
Yeah. All right. So,
let me ask you. We'll have to ask Harley this when she does come back. But right now, initial feelings on Stargirl ending, because I'm not as emotionally invested like we were on Legends. When our Legends show had to end, that was heartbreaking for me. Stargirl, I'm swallowing hard on it. Like, damn, it sucks because I expected the show to go 5 seasons, give at least 5 seasons to really flesh out our team and let them grow. It's getting cut off early, and it pisses me off. Like Dark Matter pissed me off when that ended after 3 seasons, when it was supposed to get 5. So that I'm more angry and upset than I am emotionally going, "Aw." That's my feeling.
Well, I think that's because of the number of seasons that we got with Legends as opposed to this. I think the thing about this one is we haven't had that many seasons. It's a different type of show as well. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this show, and I did my comic book research. They are pulling some very comic book storylines and villains, and we'll get into that in this episode. But I think they are one of the ones that stick a little more true to the Golden Age, and even though we're seeing some changes in characters, it still keeps that heart of that Golden Age and the heart of the JSA and people taking up the mantles and making it their own. And so I am disappointed that we're getting something that's so much more true to the comics, and we're not getting to see that lived out more. Yeah. So, yet the emotional ties may not be there, and I know it was stronger for the two of y'all with Legends because you podcast on something, it makes it more dear to you. Yeah. And I only had a couple seasons of that. With this, I feel gypped because I think we're starting to get to see some of the coming together and really being a team, like you said, and it makes me upset that we're not going to get to see that. And so I am maybe a little more emotionally invested in this than I thought I would be, because I wanted to see the continuation, especially this season where we're getting to see our heroes being mentored by some of those older generation heroes and really starting to take up the mantle as their own. So yeah, for me, it's a little more disappointing and a little more heart ties than I thought it would be, simply because of how much of the comic lore that I've read, and seeing some of that acted out in a different way but still true to that heart. So
yep. Okay, no, that totally makes sense too. And we'll see as we get closer, like with how, sneak peek here, how good this episode was. If they can continue on this track towards the end, then they're going to build an emotional connection to the show. I mean, 3 seasons is still pretty good. Some shows don't make it past the first season.
Right.
I think I'm going to just need the rest of the season to get me over the anger right now. I am just mad that they're cutting it off when it's just getting going. It's not right.
Yeah.
So if HBO decides to pick it back up, as long as the finale leaves the door open for it to be able to, small chance. But
yeah, we'll
right,
see.
Cool. Let's get on to the rest of your news.
So typically we hear in November when the premiere date of Superman and Lois is going to be, and we typically get a trailer. So I would fully expect that we will hear the premiere date for Superman and Lois this month.
Okay.
It's either going to be the end of January, beginning of February. That's generally the time frame of how they're doing things. Now, they may push it back a little bit so that they have less breaks. We're obviously going to have less breaks this year than we did last year because we're not dealing with COVID like we were, and we're also not dealing with Tyler filming Teen Wolf movie and some other stuff going on. So I don't think we'll have quite as many breaks, but they could push it back a little bit so we don't have as many. But we'll see. We should hear this month about when that's kicking off. So things are still totally up in the air with season 4, and with Stargirl getting canceled. People are like, okay, it's Superman and Lois is going to be the next thing, or although I still think if CW does not pick this up, I still think this is a much more stronger contender to move over to HBO Max than Stargirl is.
Well, HBO is paying for half of the show, so.
Well, we've said that, but then Bitsy has come out and said, well, it's not as much as people think. It's not like it's like super above and beyond, but they're getting some of it, and like both Superman and Lois and Stargirl streaming rights go to HBO Max. So like when the seasons are done, they go directly there. They're not into that Netflix deal. So there's some incentive there. But yeah, I could definitely see this getting picked up there. But we'll see.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things happening with it because, Stargirl got canceled. Flash is in its last season, so that leaves Superman and Lois. It will be the last show standing.
Yeah.
Then you got Henry Cavill coming back as Superman, and we all know DC doesn't like two people playing the same character. We talked about that last week. So that's going against it. But you also have the guy who's running the whole show saying, I love Superman and Lois. It's one of my favorite shows. And he's the guy he's one of the executives. So we really don't know. There's some counterbalance there between good and bad points.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't know what their thinking is going to be on what type of shows that they're going to pick up. I mean, I know that there's talk about adding more reality shows, pulling in more imports, either from Canada or from overseas, things that are less expensive to make, but they've still got to find some type of niche to go in there to compete. But I don't know. We'll see.
And you said like their demographic is 58 years old on average. Well, Superman's been around for over 80 years. I'm sure he's got fans that are in their 50s and 60s. So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, my thoughts and reasoning don't happen to line up a lot of times with those folks. But anyway.
Yeah. Cool. What's the last bit you got for us?
All right, so down a little bit from last week, but this was the early numbers. I don't know if they're include the DVR. So Stargirl's viewership for this week was 440,000. So like I said, that was just the first look that I looked at the other day, and that's not probably including the DVR numbers. So
okay. I mean, we're dancing around the close to 500,000 mark, which is okay. So now it'll be interesting to see. Now that's been announced that it's canceled, will viewership go way up? Because I better check it out and catch up or finish it, or will people be like, taking my show away? I don't even care then.
I doubt that, but
I do know people. I actually know people. I work with a couple, and they say, I'm not going to watch a show if it's canceled. They've actually said, like, forget it. Why waste my time? If it's not going to end or not get to continue, I don't really care. And it's surprising. Yeah. It's surprising. Some people's the rules for how they view things makes me laugh sometimes.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
I hate that guy. I'm never going to watch that. Yeah, but it's your favorite character, your favorite genre, your favorite. Yeah, but I don't like the support. I don't know, whatever reason. That just makes me laugh. Although, listen to me, I'm the guy who will never, ever support Bebo ever again. So, all right. Well, there we go for news this week. Let's get into our impressions and ratings of the show.
Gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe.
All right. So I gave this one 9 battle royales.
Nice.
I loved the emotional scenes between Pat and Barbara, between Courtney and Yolanda, and even the short ones between Pat and Crusher and Paula and Barbara. I really liked the fight scene at the Mahkent mansion, and we have asked the show to make Beth more relevant, and they have. But is it too much too late? I don't know. We'll talk about that. And finally, we get the reveal, we think, of the big bad of the season. And I added this in there. The director of this episode, and who is also one of the producers on the series, is Andy Amagian, I guess is how you say the name, who longtime director and editor for Smallville, for Arrow, for Supergirl, and you can feel some of those roots in this episode. It was written by the creator Jeff Johns, and so I am just really looking forward to talking about this episode.
Yeah. Good. Well, I am giving this one an 8 anger management issues. So I am back on the brighter side of things this week. It was a much better episode with lots going on. There are still some moments in editing and choreography and plot device stuff that drove me nuts, and I'll bring those up. I got them in our notes. But overall, there was just a better feel to this episode, and it's probably due to what you said. If someone heavily involved with the show got in on the directing and Jeff Johns wrote it, I mean, you could just feel the drama and the emotion. Everything was just much, much better. So, as things started to blow up and come to a head after some long build-up, I was just waiting for this to happen, and it was just kind of fun to see everyone lose their cool and say enough is enough, whether it was good guys or bad guys. I had fun with that. And there was some good emotions this episode without rushing through everything, and that's what I'm talking about, which I think connects to what you said about the directors and stuff. They actually took their time to work through things and let the process happen. It wasn't just a quick cut and 1 or 2 lines. They spent a lot of time with Pat and Barbara. They spent a lot of time with Courtney and Cameron. They spent a lot of time with the grandparents. Everybody got to just flesh it out, and it didn't feel hurried through, and it allowed the emotion to settle in. So much better directed and put together episode this week.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, let's get into it and talk about it.
Meanwhile, at the Hall of Justice.
So let me kick it off with just talking about the special effects this episode, because we complained the last couple of weeks like how much of a lack of them there was. Well, they obviously been saving them up, whether they're saving the effects or saving the workers' knuckles or the budget, I don't know. But the fight sequence with the ice blasts and the Thunderbolt floating around, and then the final moments with the new bad guy, which I won't reveal yet in case you guys don't know who he is. We'll save that till we get there. All of this stuff was just, wow, everything looked really spectacular this week. Like, really good. That none of the effects looked cheap or tacked on or low budget. It was really, really high quality level, so I was quite happy with that.
Yeah, indeed. It was good stuff. I was really... the little ice moments of the paper crinkling and the icicles and just the eyes and everything, they just did an amazing job this week.
Yep, totally. Well, we're going to kick it off like we usually do with the JSA and all their friends and frenemies. I just got one quick point here I want to throw in. You guys will probably get a laugh out of. The last 2 episodes, Pat has been wearing this really cool blue puffer jacket. And I love that jacket so much that I tried to find online, and I just simply Googled Stargirl Season 3, Episode 8, Pat's jacket. And I was able to find, 4 different stores that are selling it, and they're all saying, Stargirl's Pat jacket or whatever. Everybody's sold out. So I must not be the only one looking for it, because it is sold out on every online store. I'm like, come on! I want that jacket.
Nice. Oh, well, hopefully in time for the holidays.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I'm going to keep looking. But the price range is funny. I found one store has it for $78, and the highest place is $160. I'm like, holy crap. What a price difference. Yeah. So I'm definitely going to wait for the lower price point. And that's American, too. And you guys know right now, the U.S. exchange for Canada is ridiculous. Our Canadian dollar is only 70 cents right now on the American dollar. So everything that I look at U.S. priced, I got to add an extra third more on top of that. So $75 still becomes like $110. It's crazy.
Woo.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's get back to our show about the GSA people.
Yeah. So Pat and Courtney make it back, and both are shaken by their experiences that we saw last episode. And Barbara comforts Pat, and Pat fills her in about his dad and his regrets with Mike. And I just really love Barbara's reassuring him and their talks together. I chose this part of this as my favorite scene, and just mainly due to the power of their performances.
Yeah, and I it's actually a really good scene. So I don't want to ruin your scene when it comes, because there's a couple things I want to talk about it here. I'd rather bring them up here than poo-poo on your scene when it comes, because it's not the actress, it's not the performance, it's not anything about the scene. It's a couple points I want to bring up about what they're trying to do here. This was a big emotional story about Mike's past. And 2 things kind of struck me with what they were trying to do with the scene here. Now, I think, one, it could either be that they're trying to build some emotional connection for the audience to Mike, because they know he's not a fan favorite character. I'm sure they're seeing a bit of the hatred towards this character, so I'm wondering if they're trying to build up some emotional connection to him for us, or number 2, they already think we care about him. They're completely blind and not paying attention out there, and they think we really care about him, and they wanted to give us some backstory, some origin, some whatever to his character. I'm not sure where they would get that from, but if you look at how this season has gone, he's been getting more and more scenes. Every episode, he's getting more and more screen time, him and Jakeem. They're getting longer and longer. So I'm not sure which one it is, but those are the 2 things that kind of struck me with why they would give us this hugely emotional scene about where he came from. And I'm curious what you think about that, but I will agree with you before we get to your favorite scene that it was a great scene for Pat and Barbara, and we're going to talk about that more later. I agree with you on everything you said. It just, I had these questions come to my mind.
Well, honestly, I think we're getting to see more of Barbara's usefulness in this season, which we complained about last season. And I think it's their way of building the same thing in there for Mike, to give him some connection to the story and the ongoing arc that feels like it's earned, so that he is just not sitting out there like this other character, but also, to contrast him and Courtney. And so I think there's a lot of different reasons. And I think maybe the issue of him not being liked is how he's been written, or that he's taking up other people's screen time and how they're doing it. So I think maybe they're trying to remedy this by bringing them in, giving them more screen time, him and Jakeem, and working it that way. And it may not be working as well as it is with Barbara, because of who Barbara is and how they're working it in. So I don't think it's option number 2. I don't think that they are, unaware that we don't feel that way, but you got to take into account, like we said, this was written and filmed a long time ago. So it's not like they're adapting to what they're seeing this season. They're adapting to what they saw last season, and maybe it's just not working as well.
Yeah.
But I think it also gives us, it's about Mike and Mike's past, but it's really about Pat. It is about Pat not wanting to be his father, wanting to do better, and wanting to figure out how to do that. And so while, yes, it concerns Mike, to me it's more about Pat and how he wants to be a dad and work things in. So I think this particular scene is about that. Now, the other scenes where we're seeing more of Mike and Jakeem, that's the writers trying to work it in. But I think this one is more about Pat.
Yeah, okay. No, I can agree with that too, for sure. It really, it was all about how Pat was dealing with what the Shadowlands just made him realize that, you know what, I haven't been good to Mike, and I'm being the same dad to him that my dad was to me. And that, so definitely it was Pat having to realize with what that feels like, and how do I make this better. So, yeah.
So upstairs we get Courtney and Yolanda forgiving each other. And, honestly, to me, it's really heartbreaking to hear Yolanda talk about her parents and what she's going through. We know that it's been hard on her these 3 seasons, seeing that. But I love that she realizes that her parents, knowing her secret and knowing that they would probably share that, wouldn't just affect her. It would affect the other members of the JSA and the other families. So I like that Yolanda is realizing that it's not just about her, and her, as hard as it is, she didn't want to reveal it because she knows what it means to her to be Wildcat, and she knows what kind of danger it would put the others in if that was known, and how it would put the families in danger too. So as hard as it is, I think she kind of made the wise decision because of her knowing her parents.
I think that was a pretty selfless way for her to think like that. She wasn't the only one this episode, but I'm going to get to that later. Like, she wasn't the only one that was thinking beyond themselves. But what made me appreciate this week's storytelling is that we finally get to see growth in some characters and some maturing and some understanding. And Yolanda really had some moments of wisdom here, some growing moments of, step back, get outside of my stupid bickering immaturity and realize what's actually going on. And it was really good to see. And see them get past all of that bickering and being at each other's throat. And all I can say is finally, because we've been griping about that all season. This is too many episodes in that we kept seeing the same thing over and over. So I had a great feeling of relief for this episode. And, she even says, I was wrong about Cindy. Well, mostly wrong. Like, it was a fun moment, but it was good to see her admit to that.
Yeah. And I really... it just made a good point, and I like that she brought that up about her talking about Cindy too. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Totally.
So Pat looks up Mike's mom on a search engine that's made up
and an old laptop.
Not a real one.
Mike, that laptop looked ancient.
Yeah, and it looked like one of those ones that are built to last, like that the military would use, and you could shoot a bullet and to that kind of stuff. But so he's looking up Mike's mom, and Crusher walks in and is ready to hear the story and listen.
So let's hold off on that thought for a moment.
Yeah,
let's talk about the looking up Mike's mom part. I want to ask, is this a good idea? Because his mom gave him up because she had a drug abuse problem. She's an addict. So would that help Mike in any way to learn that about his mom, to see her like that? Or after how many years have passed, when did Pat leave her? How many years have passed? Has she gotten past all of that? And if she has, will she see her grown-up son and be like, oh my God, I want him back, and then fight for custody? Like, are we going to get that much story to continue for Mike? I don't know. What do you think is going to go on there?
Well, we saw her last season in the diner because Sylvester went in there to find out where they were, and so she at least knows where they're living because she was able to point him on the way.
True.
But as far as what we see, I mean, I think she is making her way back from where she was. She's in a lot better footing. But I think, honestly, if she looks at the life that Mike has now, she's not going to take that away from him. Will she want to probably be in his life more and visit and things like that? Sure. But I think she sees that he's got a stable home environment and a loving family that's there for him, and she's going to want to not take that away from him. Now, whether we see all that, I don't know.
And that's if she cares. Maybe she doesn't even care. She gave him up for a reason, so maybe she doesn't even care. But it's like, depending on which way it goes, will that be good for Mike? Does he need that kind of closure? Does he need to see? Because Pat was like, I don't know. Barbara's like, yes, he needs this, and Pat's like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he does, but we'll see. How he reacts if that comes about. So. So, kind of following up, we've got Courtney apologizing to the JSA about hiding Cameron from them, and then, they forgive her, and then Yolanda pushes her to share the rest. So Courtney wants to tell Cameron the whole story about his dad, her identity, the JSA. And here we get Rick objecting, but Yolanda supports Courtney, and then Rick kind of acquiesces to that and kind of agrees.
Ooh, listen to those big words, acquiesces. I never use that in a sentence.
Well, I don't either, too, but I'm like, how to best put it? Because I wrote gives in, but that's not exactly what he does, so...
But you're right. It's nice to see the team coming together and make amends with each other again. Finally, because we were tired of seeing them being at each other. So it was just good to see. Also for me to see Courtney kind of have to be a bit sheepish and having to apologize and kind of slunk down in her chair, knowing that she was wrong and everything that she was doing, she was wrong, and her friends were right. I mean, for me, I was just like, yes, and that's part of her maturing and understanding. Like, she was wrong about everything there, and her giving in to her friends and apologizing, I think, was a good scene for her. So hopefully that we see more come of that. I will talk about Rick's stuff a little bit later in the episode, but this brings us back to Yolanda supporting her and saying, hey, I was wrong about Cindy. That was her way of supporting Courtney, because Courtney was fighting them. Like, you guys need to give Cindy a chance. So yeah, it was good. Again, just a good scene for the team. And we'll come back to that in a bit.
Yeah. So, a little bit of trivia. The movie series at the theater is Nathaniel Dusk. And so this is a character, and the character is set. He's a detective, and it's set in the 30s, and it's from a DC comic line in the mid-80s. And so it was just kind of a fun nod to DC. Even the poster there is kind of a takeoff of some of the comic book art. So it was just a neat little nod, and I think Jeff Johns wrote some of those in there, but just a neat little nod.
I'm glad you're paying attention to the movie signs now, because I think every time they show the movie theater, it's an Easter egg moment for us. They're meaning you to look up what it is. Like, I was paying attention. Oh, that's an old movie, because I searched this one. IMDb, I searched all over the internet. There is no movie called Nathaniel Dusk, and whatever the title of the movie was. There's nothing in there. So I'm glad you knew that it was something different. And I'm pretty sure that is just an Easter egg for fun.
Yeah, definitely.
Every time.
So in that scene, we see that Rick has the hourglass strapped to him, like at all times, and he is having some side effects, some headaches. And it just had me questioning what's going on, and we're getting to see more. Is this going? This was like a clue of we're going to get to see some more throughout the episode.
Yeah, well, let's get into that a little bit there, because what is happening to him? Because we see him walking. This comes right after the movie theater scene. They're walking along the sidewalk there. And he gets this, pain, and they're like, what's wrong? Oh, nothing, just a headache. Is he overdosing on adrenaline? Is it too much steroids type of effect? Because he's just wearing the hourglass, so he's strong all the time. So is it just like I said, he's overpumped on steroids? I don't know what's going on there, because at the lunchtime scene that we just talked about, he seemed fine there. He was okay. I just don't know. I'm curious what's going on, and the only thing I can think of is his body is just wearing out from being super pumped up on whatever this energy is that he gets from the hourglass. It's too much for him to be so constant.
Yeah, I think it has to do with endurance, because at the lunch table, you take that's at lunch, and they're walking around town, school's out. He has to be more in control, and it takes more energy and self-control to be in control. And because all of these events happen over the course of a day, we get to see him less and less in control, and the emotions are just ruling him by the end of the episode. So I think it can be adrenaline, it can be just he is just losing control as the day goes on. And I think that's the reason his dad put in that limiter, so that not necessarily that maybe it's not necessarily an addiction, but just a lack of control, and that hour is a sweet spot. You're not going to get run down. Your body's going to be able to recover. You're going to be able to deal with the emotions and the control, and a little bit better. And so I think it's a lack of control, and it's just wearing over him over time as the day goes on.
Okay. Yeah. Maybe they'll explain. I mean, it's always going to continue. We'll see what comes of it. I mean, after what happened to him this episode, maybe he's going to be out for the count for a bit. We'll see. So we're going to jump into talking about Courtney and Cameron and the Grandcicles there at their house. But the very opening moments of the episode, you see Granny sitting at a desk, and she's staring at a picture in a photo album. And I'm going to try to remember to post this picture in the Facebook page, because I want to get everyone's opinion on this. It's a really creepy picture that we get to look at, and I want to know what it is, because there looks like there's a bunch of wood piled up in like a teepee shape, and something is smoking inside of it. But then there's a house in the background, and it looks like there's an explosion, or there's something bursting out of the roof of the house. And to the right of it, there's a figure. And I don't know, it's like some type of optical weird illusion. The figure looks like it's farther back by the house, but it also looks like it's coming out of this fire. I have no idea, and I just want to ask, like, what is that? Like, it's a body with their arms outstretched. Are they coming out of the fire? Are they coming out of the house? Because to me, they look too small to be coming out of the fire. Because you speculate, is that somebody being burned at the stake there? I can't tell. It's a really weird looking picture to me. It's creepy. Like, it's something right out of, like, Paranormal Activity or something. I don't know.
Yeah. My thought was this was in their homeland.
Okay.
And they're getting pushed out of their homeland, and maybe this is a family member or something like that that's being burned at the stake or something like that. Of whoever's burning the house, they're burning whoever. They're being pushed out of their country, and then that's when the family comes to the U.S. That's my thought. And she's like, our family left and we're trying to make a legacy here, and she's all about the legacy right after that. So that's my thoughts and guesstimation on it.
Well, I like your story, your history behind what could have caused this and got them to come to this country, but the visual part of it doesn't make sense to me, because you look at the figure, it's too small to be in that teepee of firewood. Like, if you look at where the arms are and the head, it's way above the roof of the house, and it just the way it's skinny and stretched, like, if that's a person, the body would be a lot bigger in that close-up view of the teepee. So to me, I'm thinking it's like a spirit of some kind. So if it is an ancestor of one of their ice people, maybe the house on fire, everything that's on fire, they're evaporating and becoming smoke, and this is just like their spirit leaving the scene, because it just seems too
I don't know.
small. I don't know, and I'll try to remember to post it, and I can get everyone's thoughts on it, because it's creepy. And then the next question is, okay, well, if their family's being burnt alive or whatever's happening here, why does someone take a picture of that to keep us a memento?
I don't know.
Weird. So anyway, just creeped me out. Like, that's something out of the best horror movies right there. Like, it's a mystery.
Yeah.
But then speaking on the idea of pictures, from that, when we see her get up, or when she closes the photo album and looks up across the room, she then looks at a portrait on the wall, and we see Mrs. Icicle in the picture. And if I'm correct, I think that's the first time we've ever seen Cameron's mom.
Yeah, it's been probably season 1 if we did, because I don't remember it. But it was good to see Mr. Icicle there again too, just to see his face again. I wish they would bring him back, but just to see the family portrait, so it was kind of cool. And she is, like we said, she is just very upset at the loss of her son, and she's just taking it out on Cameron, because she doesn't feel like he is upholding the family legacy, and like she thinks it needs to be upheld. and it's just rough, because she's just so upset and distraught here. So
she's very strict about keeping up the family psychotic Freeze family legacy. She wants them to stay evil. She wants them to stay in power, stay in control, and whatever it is they're up to. I mean, they seem pretty quiet. It's not like the grannies are really doing anything about anything at all. But I think she just wants the family to stay strong and to have that type of leadership. So I'd love to go back again. If we could get a flashback scene into the Icicle the Mahkent's family history, I would love that. Let's get some like an Arrow Island sequence.
Yeah,
and just see where was going on with their family. That would be great.
Yeah, it would.
But this is we haven't had this on the show for a long time. I'm bringing it back just for this episode.
Form of water.
Because I mentioned in my opening monologue, I got a few nitpicks. I still rated it an 8. These don't bother me that much, but they're things that stand out to me. This is an editing mistake that I instructed you guys on last week, on how when you transition from one camera angle to the next and it's still the same scene, you have to make sure things connect, or it creates a visual mistake. And we got a huge one here in the scene that we're talking about, when Granny gets up from the photo album and walks out the room. She leaves the room with her arms hanging down at her sides. Her hands are at her sides. The camera switches to her coming, like she walks through the doorway, and then the camera switches to her coming out the doorway from the hallway. It's the exact same scene, and she suddenly has her hands clasped together and she's fidgeting with her fingers. There was no movement of her lifting her arms up to clasp her hands. It just went hard cut, hands at her sides to hands now up in the air and clasp. And I was like, you guys missed that one. That's bad. That's obviously two separate. Cut. All right, reset. Blah, blah, blah. 3 hours later, pick up the scene, and they forgot that she had her arms at her side. So anyway, it just bugs me. I catch those things. Probably nobody else notices that. Anyway, big glaring one there for me.
Yeah. So Mr. Deisinger comes to talk with the Grandcicles and is met with a very frosty reception, both at the door and later on.
Yeah.
But we see through his eyes all the artwork and that's in the mansion there, and we find out that they're by Cameron's mom, and you know, he obviously Cameron takes a lot of cues from his mom's artistic styles, and we get to see Paul being a very good teacher and standing up for Cameron's art and Cameron's passion at it. But grandmother is not having it, and she kills him with an icicle. I mean, it's like she does her hand. It's not like it flies from her hand. It just like appears in his chest. So it was just like, what?
Yeah, like she threw it at him really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And you saw his eyes froze over
right.
too. Like he was frozen from the inside.
Yeah.
And so before I talk about that, as you were talking, I started speculating even more. It was the room full of his mom's art. So number one, the artistic passion was genetically passed down from mother to son.
Mm-hmm.
That's why Cameron has an interest. Number two, he probably grew up as a kid watching his mom paint.
Mm-hmm.
And painting probably reminds him of his mom. That's
Sure.
why he enjoys doing it. It makes him feel close to her.
Mm-hmm.
So he likes to do it. But this is why Granny hates it so much, is because Mama probably wasn't part of the Icicle family. She was probably a regular person. And I'm betting Icicle grandparents didn't like her that much. So they've got all of this art from his mom, and they think that's a weakness for Cameron, and that's why they want him to stop doing the art, because it's like, no, we don't want you being like your mom, we want you being like your dad.
Yeah.
So I'm actually surprised that they're keeping her art there.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because their son liked it, and they're like, we can't disappoint our son, we'll just... Yeah. I don't know, but I just put all of that together in that moment. I was like, okay, that makes some sense.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. But now, holy crap, I mean, that was a moment I did not see coming. Granny Icicle is uncontrollable. Like, uncontrollable. She's off her rocker. She's off the hilt. She's getting angry, and that's why I was talking about anger management issues in my rating. But here's the thing. She just murdered a teacher. So this is a bit of a nitpicky question. Isn't that going to cause some problems when he doesn't show up to school to teach art class? Because he just suddenly is wiped off the earth. Does anybody know? Or, you know how how I've been picking on the show, is this blind town not even going to notice that he's gone and life's just going to go on? Like, they blew up the art class, they blew up the school. We're never getting any closure on people reacting to what's happening in this town. So now we've got a murdered teacher, and we saw later in one of the scenes as Courtney's walking away, they just tossed him in the garbage can.
Well, they at least did the cane, but...
Yeah. I'm assuming his body parts might be in a garbage bag or something. I don't know.
But like you take it back to season 1 where the Crusher and Paula are burying the football coach because they didn't want to play their daughter. And so, how many football coaches did they go through? So who knows? I mean, the town can be blind, but I don't know how they're going to explain him not showing up. But yeah, I mean, but I just feel like he got blindsided by Eclipso last season, and he gets killed by the Grandcicles this season. So
the poor guy, the poor character and the poor actor.
Yeah.
I mean, we only get to see him once every four or 5 or 6 episodes, and so he gets his moment here, and he plays the part well, and boom, he gets the death scene, and now he's done. I mean, yes, the show is ending, but at the time they did this, they didn't know that.
Right.
You know, they just wrote him off.
Yeah.
Poor guy.
So Courtney comes in to talk with Cameron, and we find out that the snow globes are from Cameron's dad, and that
Trophies.
Yeah, trophies from his trip. And I wonder, like, did he have them commissioned based on the crimes or whatever they did, or if there's some type of hidden clue to those things? I don't know, but
yeah, we didn't get a really close. I'd like to get a panning camera shot of all of them.
Yeah,
so I can see what they all are.
So she starts to come clean about his dad, and grandmother is listening, and she's comes in to stop what she's saying, but our man here at the end of the day is just so done, can't control himself. He comes in and just interrupts everything.
Totally. Now here's the thing for me is I almost want to counter the word interrupt. I don't know if he was interrupting them. It's a weird word. I guess you could use it, but it's because Beth tracked the camera signals back to the Mahkent's house.
Right.
So they think that is them watching everybody. So Rick was just kind of getting there. To me, he was getting there in the nick of time because he probably figured something was about to happen. And he was getting there in the nick of time before Granny took out Courtney, because Granny does come in and she says, "Oh, enough." She was going to probably ice out Courtney in that moment.
Sure, I agree.
So. Because she was about to snap on her. So I think Rick got there in the nick of time to stop it, and of course the big fight breaks out. But it's an interesting way to describe it, like because he comes busting through the wall, and nobody. I don't know if anybody knew who he was other than Courtney. Because the grannies seemed kind of surprised, but they also didn't seem scared of him either.
Right? No.
And poor Cameron. Like, what is going on? Like, who's this? Like, he doesn't know anything about superpowers or superheroes or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So we get Yolanda coming in as Rick is trashing Cameron, and she gets to square up against the Grandcicle grandmother.
Yeah. Now, I love when she was walking up to the house with Beth. I love seeing her do her thing, like her souped-up agility.
Oh, yeah. That was so cool.
Yeah, jumping and climbing. They do that really well. Her agility is just fun to watch. But then you got Beth right there and looking as ridiculous as ever. I can't stand her costume. It drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And she's just, in this moment, she's useless. And I mean, Yolanda even says, fighting's not your thing. Stay here. I mean, now the team is even acknowledging it. You're kind of useless in here. Like, don't come in because I don't want to have to protect you.
Yeah, exactly. So, but she does come in, and she ends up facing your granddad. And this is where her dad, Dr. Mid-Nite's dad, calls her on a burner phone to tell her about combat mode on her suit.
A little too convenient. Right when she's about to get pummeled, he just happens to have all this new info about combat mode in her suit. And then the defibrillators later in the gloves, like, plot device. This is the stuff that bugged me. But after watching it twice, it was still kind of fun, and this is the way I'm looking at it. And you can either take this tongue-in-cheek or love it. I don't know. She basically, to me, became instant Batman with instructions for dummies. Is what essentially it was, because her suit is suddenly completely gadgeted out with all kinds of tech, which is something Batman would do. So my question here for Beth is, when it's instructing her to punch, to roll, to duck, do the gloves, does everything in her suit, does it enhance her strength and agility and her abilities? Is she being enhanced? Because I cannot see Beth throwing that mean of a left hook when it tells her to left hook or whatever it says to punch, and she punches the Grandad and he goes flying against the wall. Beth does not have that kind of strength, so I'm assuming the tech is kind of beefing her up a little bit. I don't know.
I think so, because it has the different fighting styles there.
Yeah.
And so there's got to be some type of assistance within the suit to enable those things to happen. I mean, I stopped and looked in her goggles when we got the shot, and we see the cape, we see the combat mode, we see the defibrillator, we see the tracker of the owl. One thing we didn't see was like a stealth mode. Like she can like become very shadow-like, but that wasn't used here. But I really think that it is assisting her. It's an enhancement as opposed to just telling her.
Yeah.
It's got to have some type of motion there, but I definitely think it's enhancing her strength.
Yeah, because she's never fought. She's never thrown a punch, and she threw a really good left hook there to punch Grandpa down the hallway, and she was on her knees too when she did it. So
yeah.
Now, do we like it? Is it fun? Does it make Beth? I can't remember if I have this later in the notes. Does it make Beth more worthy of the team? I think I do have it further down the notes. Like, I don't know. What was your feeling? Did you like that? Did you go, plot device, corny? I don't know. What did you think?
Yeah, it was a little plot devicey, but honestly, we've been asking for her to either have a different suit, to have some type of functionality to be out in the field, or to move, and we knew that they weren't going to, make her be like Oracle because they want her out in the field. So they had to do something.
Yes.
Is it plot devicey to give all of those things at once instead of like, one at a time? Yeah, a little bit. So.
Well, it's the timing. It's the timing of it that bugged me.
Right.
I like it for Beth because you're right. We have been asking for them to do something for her to make her not be such a liability in the field. And this works, so I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me. It's just that getting that much at that moment in time was like, okay. And again, it comes back to this being somewhat directed to a younger audience where I could see younger kids going, oh yeah, woo, and loving that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
Now I got one more question. When Beth's mom does phone her in the scene, I know we're going to talk about saving the grandpa in a second, but when Beth's mom phones, she doesn't even explain. She just says, I got to phone my mom. She phones her, and the mom just immediately starts telling her what to do. So could Beth's mom see what she was seeing?
I think it was basically a FaceTime call.
Okay.
Basically, mom is seeing what the goggles are seeing. So, yeah.
Okay. So then the last thing, which I forgot to put in the notes here, the last point I had then, because we have been talking about Beth's parents. They were annoying in the beginning, and then they became on her side and supporting her, and then they got annoying again, wanting to be too much involved. And so she pushes them away, but now they found a way for her parents to be quote-unquote useful by doing some research for her and getting some answers for her about the suit and everything like that, by calling Dr. Mid-Nite and getting... Is this a good way to keep her parents relevant since she pushed them away?
Yeah, I think they had to figure out some way of keeping them involved. And this series deals a lot with family. And I think they wanted to deal with her family a little bit differently than, say, Yolanda. So I think we're seeing different types of family, and this is just a way that they can be involved and make it feel a little more, with the flow of things.
Okay. Yeah, I felt okay with it too. I wasn't annoyed by the way they're getting involved. Again, it's just the timing of it, but I like that because I had asked before. I said, her mom is the doctor. Let's get some hospital scenes where they have the doctor that they can rely on and trust with their identities, like Oliver had in Arrow. They had one specific doctor that knew them and knew the team and was always there for them when they got hurt in fights and had to get patched up. So I prefer that for Beth's mom here. It'd be a great role for her to play. And maybe this is the beginning of that. Not that we'll probably get much time to see any more of it, but this is the beginning of it. Hey, I got to call my mom. How do I stop a heart attack? And she provides the answers. So, yeah.
All right. So, in the midst of the fight, Artemis joins the fray, finally. And an interesting thing, I was looking on IMDb at the list, and they list her as Artemis, a.k.a. Sportsmaster II.
Huh. Instead of
being Artemis, which, I mean, it kind of makes sense. Like, you know, if your name is Artemis, using an alter ego name as Artemis is going to be kind of stupid. But, like, you know, but, like, it continues with tradition of people picking up parents' mantles and things like that. So
yeah, totally. Well, I got 2 points about this. Let's get this one out of the way first.
Form of water.
So, Artemis, where the heck from? How does she know where they are or what's going on when she hasn't been around or part of the team at all? Again, just a way too convenient of a moment. And again, this lends towards an amateur story writing for a young audience. And that part bugged me because just out of the blue, she shows up crashing through the window to save the day. Makes absolutely no sense when she's been gone for like 5 episodes. It's ridiculous to me. But the good part of it is that I think she looks freaking awesome. I love her costume. I love that she's got a pair of tennis balls hanging off her chest and some other, which makes sense for her new name, Sportsmaster II. But they made her look good. I like the actress, how she plays the part, even though she didn't have a lot to say. But I love her snarkiness, and I love the way they choreograph her. So, looked great, but come on. Where did the heck did she come from? Makes no sense.
Yeah. I agree with you about the costume, though. I mean, having those and the bat, too. And the cool move where she gets both her and Beth off the floor.
With the bat,
The bat.
She's like, hang on there, Beth, and whoop, flips her up. Yeah,
so I like that.
She's definitely cool.
Yeah. So it really seems like Rick is addicted, and he is not going to stop. I mean, he even hurts Courtney, throws her away and into the wall there when she tries to stop him. And this really pushes Cameron over the edge, and then grandmother spills the bean about them being responsible for the death of his dad, egging him on. But then we get to see Grandad pushing back against this and saying, you know, don't push away love, basically. So I love the contrast between the two grandparents here, but it was just in the midst. It was so powerful here with the fight scene and things going on.
Yes, well, let's talk about that. Because you kind of just glossed over a very big moment of the episode there. So, talking about Rick losing his cool, I'm trying to understand still what exactly is happening to him. Like we discussed a little earlier, the addiction, is that the right word? He is addicted to the strength and the power, but what is really going on? Is it continually pumping into him? Is he continually getting stronger that he can't control it anymore? I'm not sure how to describe it. Is he overdosing on anger, adrenaline? Like I don't know. But you're right. He can't control it. I just don't know what the word is to describe what's happening to him there. I want to bring up Courtney for a second here because she's Stargirl. She doesn't have the staff, I know, but she really seemed like a weak bystander here. Like she got shoved around a couple times, but it wasn't really until Rick hit her that she was really pushed that hard. I mean, she just got knocked off her feet and she landed on her butt. But she was down and out for the whole fight. Like, she's just sitting there watching. I mean, why doesn't she get up and get into it or stop? She just seemed like a weak bystander. And I thought she's supposed to be gymnastics and all this stuff. But she just got shoved down on her butt and she was out of the count for, like, the whole fight. And it wasn't until Rick was about to kill Cameron that she finally does some gymnastics and hops over the railing and tries to stop him, and that's when Rick smacks her. So
Right.
I was a little bothered by that. Like, why are they showing her to be this weakling, like this poor helpless girl on the floor? Oh, I can't do anything. That part bugged me. Mm-hmm. Except when Rick does smack her and slams her into the wall. Yes, now she's hurt. Okay.
Yeah.
So it just makes me think that without the staff, she really is quite weak. She has no defense.
Well, and it's about self-confidence too, that she doesn't have the staff, and she's just so thrown, literally, because here she is, she's geared herself up to tell Cameron, and here everything is going wrong. She's just, her emotions are everywhere. She doesn't know how to deal, because she's got her friend who's attacking her boyfriend. I think she was just immobilized by everything that she was seeing, and didn't know how to step outside of that until it came down to death. But that's my explanation, but I don't know.
Okay, yeah, I can accept a bit of that for sure. Now let's talk about the fight. I do want, before I'm going to preface this by saying the fight was pretty awesome, because we have not had any action in a long time on the show, and not any action that lasted more than 3 seconds. This was a really long, drawn-out fight sequence with two big fights going on, and it was really fun. Most of it was pretty good. You guys know I like to pay attention to the physics of everything and the choreography of everything.
Oh, yeah.
Most of it was pretty good. I loved Yolanda bouncing around the hallway with her Wildcat moves. She is very fun. They do her really, really well. And she is fun to watch. Her backflips and her slides and everything that she does, and the way the actress plays the part. Really good. I was surprised that Granny could really stand in there toe-to-toe. That, I'm like, they're like 80 years old. And the fact that she could get in there and stand toe-to-toe in a fist fight, essentially, that surprised me, because we saw Grandpa really struggling. He did not move so well physically. But there was the one move he did when he picked Beth up with one arm and swings her over through the ceiling archway and slams her to the ground. Like, okay, that was a pretty big power move. That must be ice enhanced or something. They must get some strength from the ice power.
Yeah,
so,
has to be.
Anyway, so all that stuff was really good, but I can't let it go by without
Form of water.
nitpicking the choreography just a little bit, because there was 2 things that bothered me here. Rick and Cameron were still up on the upper level, and they were facing off against each other. They had already gone back and forth a few times. But Cameron leans in to throw one big ice punch, and Rick counters it by leaning on the ground and coming up with an upward spin kick to kick the punch, basically. He was countering the punch with a kick, and he kicks Cameron in the fist, and both of them come flying forward towards the camera, towards the TV screens that we're looking at. Now, the physics don't work there. They work for Cameron, because Cameron was punching with his right hand, and Rick was countering that with his foot, kicking his fist towards us. So that worked, because there was a bit of Cameron was using some ice power, so the ice power caused a bit of an explosion, because he was going to hit him with that. So the way he kicks his fist, it works for Cameron to come flying towards us. But Rick's kick should not cause him to fly forward. When the explosion happens, his kick was behind Cameron, and it should have bounced off and sent him backwards against the bookshelf and towards the doorway. But instead, Rick comes flying forward with Cameron, and the physics of that make absolutely no sense. He should have went backwards. They should have been separated from that. So that's my first nitpick. The next one was when they were down on the bottom level and the fight was going on. Cameron got behind Rick. He freezes the floor and then slides underneath him through his legs, and then he slides up to the wall, does a twist, kicks off the wall, does an upwards reverse somersault into the air, twists again, then kicks off the wall and into an ice blast heading towards Rick. And all of that combined is just impossible. It is not possible in any way for that to happen. Number one, you cannot somersault upwards into the air, let alone reverse somersaulting. If he had a sprung off the wall and somersaulted forward, moving towards Rick, that is possible. But somersaulting straight up in a reverse flip is impossible off of the wall, and then just him then charging forward with his ice blast from that flip. None of it made any sense. It was too much. Like whoever was choreographing just thought, this is gonna be cool. Let's do this. Let's add in that. Yeah, let's throw this in there. This is gonna be cool. It doesn't work. For a younger audience, oh wow, this is so cool, but it just was too much, and I had to nitpick it. So, but let's get back to some fun stuff. Yeah. Granny, what I also really loved is Cameron having his really explosive moment where he does the run and screams and lets out all of his power and basically just about takes Rick down. Like he sends him flying into the stairs. He's crashed into the stairs and he's laying there almost dead. Granny's up on the upper level still, and she very much was Emperor Palpatine in those moments because she's standing there looking down at Cameron, who's standing over Rick, and she's like, "Finish him, yes! Finish him, yes!" Yeah. That's totally Return of the Jedi. It's Palpatine standing up on the upper level, looking at Luke, standing over Vader after he's defeated Vader. Yes, finish him, kill him, strike him down. Yeah. It was exactly Return of the Jedi, and I had a good fun chuckle with that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I love that. Just the voice and everything that she had. It was great.
Totally. All right, I'll take a breath now. You can continue on to the next point.
Yeah. So we talked about it. This is when Grandad comes in and really stops him from going any farther. But the fight and everything else he has been doing has just taken everything out of him, and he has a heart attack. And so Dr. Mid-Nite comes in, calls Mom, finds out they've got the defibrillator, and gives him 2 charges. And I like medically that he didn't just like spring up and was like great, perfectly fine afterward. Like basically what you're doing is getting the person's heart back in rhythm. And so he's still going to need medical attention. Yeah. He's still going to need help. But I like that they, did more truthful, defibrillation there. So
isn't that though a horrible word to try to say? It's
yes,
that's a tough word to say. Defibrillation. Yeah. So a couple points here. Yeah, Grandpa's definitely in worse physical shape than Grandma is. Like that fight was hard on him. I mean, he got hit once and his arm was really sore. He kept holding his arm, and he was. I think he was just out of breath, and he was struggling to even walk down the hallway. So yeah, he was really struggling. But what I like here, this goes back to what we were saying about Beth, is she actually now has a use in the field.
Right.
She's the medic of the team. Every team needs a medic out there, so she can stand in the background and wait until she's needed, but she can be the medic. There's a use for her. Yay, Beth. Now, I have a question, though. They all were quite okay with letting Beth try to save him, and it all seemed to be like a relief moment that she was able to. So, in saving Grandpa Icicle, will that bring peace between everybody there?
No.
You don't think that'll be enough to do that? Okay.
No, not going to happen. I think it was, a armistice, a break in the action. He's being saved. The medic comes out on the field, saves him, but there's going to be a return because the emotions and everything that led up to that fight are still there. They're still going to have to deal with that, and it's going to be. I think Cameron will take that advice to heart, but not yet. It's going to take some time for him to deal with it, and I don't think it's going to immediately stop the warfare there.
Okay. I'm going to go out on a limb, on a really far, thin limb, and I'm going to counter that with, I think it will. I think Granny's going to realize she lost her cool, and it almost got her son killed, and her husband almost died here, and the fact that Beth could save him, she might step back and go, maybe I'll listen to Cameron a little bit. And because my next question is going to make it's going to make me wonder, but I'm just throwing this theory out right now. Because of the character we got introduced to in the final moments, I think that could be ultimately the true bad guy of this season, and whoever else he might be working with. And I think Cameron might struggle with the news he just found out for a little bit, but he might have to help them fight this new creature at the end. Maybe. That's one theory.
Yeah, I agree that. I think that he will have to. I mean, I think they're all going to have to work together to solve this, and work against this villain. But I think we are going to see the fallout, and we're going to see the anger. I think there's going to be some skirmishes because of it. So
Okay.
I would be hopeful that everything will go to peace with them, and they'll focus on this big bad. But I just don't see that happening immediately.
Okay, because I'm wondering about Cameron at the end there. The way he was looking down at Courtney, she looked completely distraught and completely apologetic, and I wish I told you and all that stuff. I couldn't read how he looked at her. He was mad when Grandma first said, "They're the reason. They're who killed your dad." That's what made him mad. But afterwards, he was looking at her with this kind of, "Why didn't you tell me? You should have told me." There was something in his face there where I don't think he was angry anymore, but he's hurt. He's hurt by her not telling him. And I think that's why. Will this cause him to be angry enough that he is going to turn evil and go against the team, or will he just need some time to get over it? And then by the end of the season, by the last big fight in the episode, he comes in to help them win the fight.
Yeah, I think I can see it going that way. I think he's going to have to process. I think he's dealing with a ton of emotions now. It's hurt, and it's going to be lashing out in anger. They're kind of contrasting him and Rick, and so I don't think he's going to turn evil, but I think he is going to have to go down the road of dealing with the betrayal he feels and learning to control his emotions and remembering that Courtney taught him so much about using his power.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a big process.
Okay, yeah. I guess we'll have to see where they go with it, right?
Yeah.
Which way they decide.
Yep.
Okay. Cool.
All right, so these next two sections tie into each other. So the next section is coming up is Jakeem, Mike, and Thunderbolt. And so Jakeem and Mike are eating at the diner, and Jakeem is encouraging Mike that they need to keep their job, but they also need to go help Cindy.
Jakeem sure seems like he has a bigger crush on Cindy than Mike. Mike almost seemed like, Cindy? Like, he seems like he's written her off, but Jakeem was all about saving Cindy.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I think Mike is looking at her as a tool to use to keep them relevant in solving the crime and that kind of stuff. And Jakeem is seeing her as a person, and yeah, I think he's got a big crush on her.
Yeah, well, I mean, just look at, he's like, she stood up for us, and we didn't stand up for her.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Right, exactly. So, they wish Cindy's locker open, and it works! It works!
They got the right wish out, yep.
Yeah, and they find in her stuff a list of her dad's labs, and all but one is checked off, and that one's circled, and it's the Etter Produce Farm, which is in town.
And I don't know if that name's supposed to mean anything to us. It could just be
neither.
Okay, it's just a farm. Yeah, that was a really big list, and that probably matches up to how many points we saw on the map the last time we saw the map.
Oh, yeah.
I just want to say, though, I even enjoyed Thunderbolt this episode. They didn't make him annoying. I loved every time he spoke, little pink sparks came out of the pen. Yeah. That's a fun special effect, just to let us know that he's there. And when he talks, he sprays pink fairy sparkles. Like I just found it fun, and the voice acting. Seth did a good job with his voice acting. He was actually humorous this time around, and had the right lines, and he was fine. And like I said in the opening there, that he looked really good when they were floating through the barn. Holy crap, he looked really good. Like he had that ethereal body, the upper half of a torso, and then his bottom half, it was just lightning bolts that were acting like tendrils, and they were dragged. He was floating along the ground. I thought, man, they really did a good job on him.
Yeah, and even the upper half, the sparks in the body and that kind of stuff. It was really cool. Good. So they head to the farm, and they don't see it, and evidently they don't smell it. But the farmer is dead on the other side of the door, and so they head over to the barn. And I was kind of with them. I was like, is it a lab under the barn? Is it hidden? Totally. What's going on here? And then we hear the growl. And then we see this white ape come at them. And he says, I will kill every last one of them. And I've got to give it to Dreamweaver, because in our discussion thread in our Facebook group, she rightly pointed out that this is the Ultra Humanite.
Yeah.
So
now, and it was funny because everyone was like, "Is that Grodd? Is that one of the apes from Grodd's secret land in Africa? Who is?" Because obviously that's what it looks like. That's what he looks like. You would just imagine, okay, it's one of Grogg's, cooler, because Grogg's in the universe. He's been on Flash multiple times. Right. It would make sense that they would bring someone in like that. I thought, okay, maybe it could be one of Grogg's, commanders or something. I have no idea. So that was kind of fun. But I'm hoping you have some comics background for us. You're going to tell us about the Ultra Humanite, because I don't know anything about him other than the name. But before we go on to that, this whole scene of them walking up to the farm, and actually they did that really well too, because it gave me a very Stranger Things vibe.
I mean, very, very horror movie vibe with the lighting and the scenes and the shadows. And I mean, even Thunderbolt brings up, how it reminds him of horror movies.
He says, even I'm scared. So they did a good job with it. So the direction of this episode was far beyond what we've seen so far. They just nailed it this time.
Yeah. So this leads into the suspects. So we're going to backtrack a little bit, because Beth tracks the feeds to a mine in Utah, and we hear from Sylvester that was a dead end. And all I could think about is routing. This. It's routed to here, it's routed to here, it's routed to here.
That's how they cover it up in the movies all the time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, it's routing it that way. And then the glasses tell her that the signal's not in the sewers like we were thinking, but in the Mahkent house. So...
Now, I think they were trying to go for a kind of what moment with that, but...
No, it
doesn't make sense to me with everything we've been seeing leading up to this episode. It can't be the grandparents that's watching them, because that is not one of them sitting in the chair with the leather glove, and watching all the monitors, putting the puzzle together, having that sewer-like room. That is not them. They do not... It's just not. It's not them. I mean, maybe they have a hidden basement that looks like that, but it doesn't make any sense to me. That's not them. I again think this is still yet another misdirection. Somehow,
I agree. It is a misdirection of the Ultra Humanite, giving it to known bad guys, that location, and the JSA has no clue what we do as far as that figure in the shadows. They just know somebody's been watching them. They know somebody killed the gambler, but they have no clue of anything that we have seen in those scenes. So they don't have that. So, yes, this is a misdirect, and that leads us into the villain, the Ultra Humanite. The Ultra Humanite is a Superman / JSA villain from the 40s, and he was a Superman villain, a super villain before Lex Luthor.
Wasn't he Superman's very first villain? I thought I saw that. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Very first one.
The very first one. So, due to his scientific experimentation on his body, he is the most agile and learned brain on Earth. And he was one of the greatest criminal geniuses ever. But, unfortunately for him, while these energies in his mind help him grow and gave him low-level mind energy techniques such as telepathy, his brain interference just, that interface never advanced, and he wasn't able to control the mental energies. And what happened is he burned out bodies. So this was a way for them to do a surprise in the comics. Oh, you don't suspect it's X person because the Ultra Humanite has taken over that body. So he transfers his energies to different bodies. And
his whole psyche, everything about him he can transfer?
Right. Goes to another body. Yeah. So, he could be a man, he could be a woman, and you wouldn't know it's the Ultra Humanite because he's transferred bodies. So, what happens is, he's running through those things, and he eventually figures out, okay, I'm going to have to do something. So, he takes a albino gorilla originally from Gorilla City, where Grodd is from, and that body is able to house his super brain and his abilities. And so that gives him incredible strength and durability in addition to his mind's abilities. So in my mind, this explains the roars we've heard.
Oh, totally.
And his mental abilities could be that telepathy that allows him to throw people in the air like we have seen. And so that would explain why we're not seeing somebody there, but it explains a whole lot.
It totally does. I mean, of course the roar, the growl, all of that, because it sounded exactly the same when he came into the barn there. That was him. Now we know where the growl came from. Plus, we also know the strength to destroy the trailer. He's obviously strong enough to do that. Makes total sense.
Right.
That part is answered. And it's actually, I think it's called telekinesis. Telepathy is more reading minds, like Professor Xavier.
Right, yeah. You're right. And I think he had a little bit of both.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask you, because telepathy means mind control and stuff like that, which is like Professor X and all that.
Yeah, he has both. He has... So he's got enhanced intellect, superhuman strength, durability, animal control of gorillas only.
Yeah.
Hypnosis, sufficient power to implement suggestion in the minds of the members of Infinity Inc. simultaneously, and telepathy and telekinesis.
Okay.
And a brain blast equal to the power of brainwave.
Whoa.
One. So, a very formidable villain.
Yeah. Well, but that telekinesis, that's the ability to move objects with your mind. That would explain how they lifted Starman up into the sky, because we were wondering about that. So we got 3 answers from one character reveal, which is pretty cool. Now, my question, though, is he the only one? Because that's not him sitting at the desk looking at all the monitors. That's not Gorilla Grodd, because when he punched the monitor, that was not a big gorilla arm. That was a skinny little hand.
Yeah, I'm wondering why, like, he wants to kill them all, and who, like, it could be mind control. He could be, like, working with somebody to bring them down. They both have their both ends of why they want to bring the JSA down, and we're seeing, you know, that other person. I don't know. I just don't know.
What if whoever's sitting there watching the monitors, all they're doing is observing? They're not even involved. Maybe they're just watching, and we don't know who that is yet. It's definitely not this gorilla, because when we saw the person sitting in the seat, it was not a gigantic gorilla body sitting there. It was a human-sized person. So what if they're just watching, and they have not been revealed yet? They're just somebody that's watching. Ultra Humanite did do the killing, did do the smashing of the thing, did beat up Sylvester. He's a one-man show, obviously. We're not going to have a team like we speculate, like you brought up before. It is just this Ultra Humanite. And whoever's watching has just watched it happen. They're just observing all the events. Yeah.
I don't know. I think they may be involved in some way, but we'll see.
Okay. I'm just wondering how Ultra Humanite, why would he be teamed up with anybody? He seems to be good enough on his own.
Yeah, I don't know. All right, so we did have a small lessons in normalcy section.
Oh, but so good.
We got this neat scene of Paula giving Barbara self-defense lessons, and Barbara's just really not having it, but she calls Paula her friend, and you just see how visibly it strikes Paula that she says, no one has ever called me their friend before. And I just love that. I mean, we've just seen so much progress here. So
it was such a good moment, and I guarantee you this probably would have been Harley's favorite scene. We'll have to check with her on that one. But Paula is just so great here. I love even when the scene, she's like, this is how you smash someone's spleen. Wham! And she's just so calm and collected about it. But yeah, just the look on her face when Barbara says that you're a good friend. This actress is so fun. I love this actress playing Paula. She is so expressive and so much fun. And we need to have more with her. And I love that every once in a while we just get these moments with her and Barbara. It's fun, and it gives them something fun to do. I love her. She's great fun. So I've got a few things here. As we were talking throughout this episode, I want to clarify a few things because we've been speculating all season long, and I've got 3 or 4 points here that we were right on. Our speculation was just about bang on, so I'm going to list them off here because we were right on so many things that came through on this episode. We called it that Paula would want to train Barbara the way Barbara is training her or helping her with all the domestic stuff. We said that weeks ago that, she's got to teach her how to fight. Barbara's got to learn how to defend herself. We said that like 5 weeks ago, and here it happens this episode. Next, still talking about Paula, also with Crusher. I called it on Crusher just wanting to be Pat's buddy. He just wants to be his pal. And that scene, which we got coming up, it just totally proves that. And along with that, I also called it, I said, I think the Crushers, both Paula and what's his first name? Crusher's first name? I don't know why I can't think of it.
Hang on. It's actually Lawrence.
Lawrence. Okay, we've never said that before. We just call him Crusher. Okay. Anyway, well, Crusher and Paula, I called it that they are going to be the two of our bad guys that will stay good. They are fully good. And after this episode, I completely believe that now. They have turned to the good side.
Yep.
Next, we called it on Beth being useless in a fight, and Yolanda even saying it's not her thing, and that we said she needs something to make her valuable in a fight and is not a liability. And ta-da, Batman tech, here you go. So we're right there. And then the last one is, I called it that Grandcicles Grandma is the evil one, and Grand Popsicle is going to be the one that tries to calm things down. And we saw him try to do it twice here. Mm-hmm. She loses her cool, and he's the one, no, honey, no. He's trying to help our grandson. Boom, kill the teacher. Comes into the end of the fight, no, honey, no, like, enough. Cameron, stop. So I called that a couple weeks ago, that I knew there was going to be a split in the difference. They're not on the same ground with what they believe needs to happen here. So there you go. We've been pretty good with our speculation this episode, or this season.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think so.
All right. So I said earlier that Perry White had asked us in the Patreon chat only that he wants us to speculate on how this season is going to end now that we know this is the end of the show. Let's split that up. Let's only speculate how we think it's going to end here, and then in our Patreon only chat for those guys, we will then share how we want it to end. Difference there. How do you think it's going to end? How is the show going to end? If you can separate that from what you want to how you think the writers and directors are going to do it.
So, honestly, I think it's going to require everybody. I think they're going to have everybody against Ultra Humanite and anybody that's working with him. So they're going to pull everybody in, kind of like we saw last season. But they're going to have everybody that we, our JSA, former ISA, they're going to pull in our Infinity Inc. characters. I think they're going to pull in everybody to defeat him. And I think they're going to do it in, like, Mr. Bones is going to be the only one that can contain him, and so they're gonna give Mr. Bones to call to deal to contain him after the fact. And so that's how I think they're gonna finish out that they will do it that way, so that they involve everybody that we've seen this season. And as far as the rest of it, I think that we are going to see some closure and relationships set up. I think they're gonna kind of go sappy on us and that kind of stuff of everything's perfect and fine, and like we've seen in other seasons as far as the relationships and other stuff go. So that's how I think it will end, and we'll get to the other part later.
Yeah. If you want to know how we want it to end, you'll have to sign up for Patreon. So, ending speculation. I agree with you. I think Ultra Humanite is going to be the big bad that they need to have the big final fight with in the finale episode. I don't think he's going to have anybody with him. I think it's going to be just him. And I think everyone's going to have to come into it, although I think they've introduced too much, because we had Mr. Bones, we have Jade and Obsidian. That seems like a whole separate story, and for them to introduce Ultra Humanite now seems like you just brought a lot to the table and you don't have enough time to finish it all. So will they bring everybody back to win in the fight? Will Cameron have to join them as well? It just seems like how can, because that's a lot of people. If you bring in the Crushers, they bring in Artemis, they bring everybody in, even Stripes gets in on it. All of that to face down one gorilla. I guess he's like Grodd enough that it seems it should go that way. I think that because this is the end, no matter what, I think they're actually going to kill Ultra Humanite. This will be the end of this character. They introduce him. They're going to kill him in the end. That's how they have to win this fight. I don't think there'll be any continuation of that. And I think you're right that it is going to, being Stargirl and being the age group they're aiming at, this will be all romantic, cutesy, teenage stuff at the end. And whether it's Courtney and Cameron patching things up and moving on. I think Cindy will come back as well, and the team will accept her, and everything will be all good. I think something's going to happen with Mike and Jakeem, that they're going to somehow be inducted into the team. I don't know. I'm with you. I think they're going to wrap it all up in this too perfect, nice package.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see where our speculation is correct on that one. But I've been waiting for these because I think we got some good ones. Let's get to our favorite scenes for this episode.
Shape out an eagle!
All right, and I'm going to kick it off with, and I really wanted to talk about this in the episode because I just love this moment, but we're going to talk about it now. I called this one Crushing on Pat.
Hey, bud.
Croc. Wanted to check in, seeing as how me and the missus are being spied on just like you. Gotta catch these peepers. Be a relief to be cut loose after being on a leash for so long. Hey, where's Pemberton?
Beth tracked a feed to a mine in Utah. Sylvester went to check it out.
What are you doing?
Looking for someone. Hold on. Sylvester?
Hey, Pat.
How's the search going?
Terrible. Hit another dead end. Beth thinks the signal is being masked. It's bouncing all over the place. Unless she locks onto another lead, I'm headed back.
Copy that. Be careful.
See you in a few hours.
So who are you looking for?
Mike's mom.
Why are you Googling the ex?
Trying to figure out if she's in any shape to talk to him. It's kind of a long story.
So? Let's hear it.
Hey, Croc, and no offense, but it's a little more complicated than cardio, but I appreciate it.
Come on, Pat. You gotta know by now. You can trust me. So let's talk.
So good.
See? Crusher is his new best friend.
Yeah.
He totally softens up in this scene, and I love the look on Pat's face at the end, the smile. He so appreciates it. It's such a change for the character of Crusher here because he comes in with his edge, his usual edge, but when the nice music starts to play, you just heard his voice go completely soft.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, what are you looking at? What are you doing? Why are you searching up the X? And then he's just like, come on, man. You got to know by now. You can talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, his voice just completely softens up.
Exactly.
He softens up and presents this welcoming, comforting approach to or like appearance. And I was like, wow, like that. What a change. What a change for Crusher there.
Yeah, definitely. And honestly, I think everything they're doing, the juicing and the nutrition and everything, they're looking at it as a way of keeping their friends healthy and building those relationships with them. And, he is learning to kind of lay down that rough exterior and be there for his friend. And so, yeah, I think he's found that friendship with Pat that he's been missing, and he is learning how to do that. And I agree with you that the voice change there is just amazing. So
totally, yeah, really cool. And even the face too. Even his face softened up.
Yeah,
really, really good little performance for not a big scene or not a big moment, but man, yeah.
All right. Next up is mine, and I call this Facing the Pain to Cope with It.
And one day there's a policeman at the door with Mike. He'd been in a shelter overnight, alone.
Oh my God.
Maggie had left him there. When she didn't even turn up again until after she'd been arrested for possession. And I got full custody. She didn't even put up a fight. She just walked away from Mike. And, he'd asked me if he could see her. He'd asked me if he could talk to her. I'd tell him no. And after a while, he just stopped asking. I mean, I thought I was protecting Mike by treating her like she didn't exist. But now I don't know.
When Courtney's father came to Blue Valley, I blame myself for the hurt it caused her. But I do think she got some closure from it. Made her stronger. Made us stronger. And in no small part thanks to you. Sometimes letting our kids face the pain is the only way to help them learn how to cope with it. Maybe Mike needs to see his mom again.
I don't know.
You know.
Man, the whole scene, even though Flash, I put in a time in there and he added more to it, I could have taken that whole entire scene because I just loved it. This interaction between the two of them takes me back to season 1 of Pat and Barbara and how much I love their marriage. It's been, these interactions, we've seen some. That's one of the things I love about Superman and Lois is Lois and Clark's marriage and how they support each other, and getting to see Pat and Barbara walking that out here was just great, and how they listen to each other, they hear each other out, and how Pat trusts her advice of letting the kids deal with some pain to learn to grow. And so I just love the light of marriage that it puts on here. And once again, like I said, taking it back to some of the season 1 interaction between the two that we saw.
Yeah, and for all that stuff you just said, I totally agree with you. I was trying to separate the whole Mike thing from it, but it was we haven't had enough of this season or even last season with these two, and it was a good moment for them to. I guess maybe they have been living separately a little bit. So this, having Pat actually gone and possibly in trouble, I think kind of brought them back together again, realizing, you know what, we kind of need to be there for each other too.
Yeah, exactly.
We're the two normals here. We got no powers.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, really cool stuff. So we've been without Harley for like weeks now, and it's not fair that we've only gotten to have 2 scenes playing every week she's not here. So I picked a third one here that I thought would just be fun. This was a moment I thought was really, really cool for the character as well. I didn't talk about it during the notes. So I'm going to play this one, and we'll talk about it after. It's called Lunchtime Warning.
I need to tell him the truth. Should we vote?
Don't bother. You do what you want to do. I got your back. I've got everyone's back here, no matter what. And you all know that. Because you're my family. Nothing will ever change that. But don't say that I didn't warn you.
Yeah.
Now, I love that scene for a couple of reasons. I spoke earlier about how every character seemed to have a bit of a maturing moment and a growth and understanding, and this was it for Rick. He was initially pretty upset at the table, but he heard Courtney out, and he listened, and he's like, okay, you do what you want, but I got your back, and I want you guys to know that. I'm the muscle of the team. I've got your guys' backs no matter what. And I love that the actor, you heard his voice crack. It broke there when he says, "You're my family."
Right. Yeah, that was excellent.
And it's good for the character in that story, because we haven't gotten a lot of Rick story moments since the stuff with the teacher trying to get him into college and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so it brings all of that back, and it makes us remember Rick's all on his own. He has nobody.
Right.
So this group of friends is like his family for him, and he wants to express that to him, that's how he thinks of them. And I love that moment. It's very emotional, it's powerful, and the actor did it great. But then he dialed it back, and he's like, just know that I warned you, because I disagree with you, but I'm going to let you do what you need to do. And I just love that he pulled that back. And he kind of, in the end of the episode, or for the big fight, he does live up to his words. I got your back. He was there in the nick of time to step in. Yes, he maybe went overboard, but it's just, I don't know. I enjoy the Rick character, and I'm glad that he got to have this moment as well.
Oh, I totally agree. It really good, and it puts, like we talked about, a direct contrast on what we see of him later, of just, he's going into the fight with good intentions, but he's just out of control. But so it just kind of it just contrasts that. So it was just a great scene. So
yeah, totally right. All right, let's get into feedback for this episode.
If you don't dial, it will cry like a violin.
All right, we're going to kick it off. We got voicemails. That's it. So you and me get to take a break.
Yay! We get to hear there's folks in their own voices. That's awesome.
Exactly. And we can rest our vocal cords. So here's Dad L to kick us off.
Hello, Cosmic Crew. It's Dad L with my thoughts on this week's episode. All I can say is yes, this is the episode that I've been waiting for. Thought it had great action, great character development, great character moments, all in. I'm going to rate this episode very highly. I like that Rick was all in with his team, all in with his new family. That was a touching moment. This team is all that he has left, yet he is addicted to the power of the hourglass, and he loses sight of that during the battle. I really appreciate how they did this addiction storyline. It wasn't drawn out. I didn't think it was cliche, and hopefully it will be resolved soon for Rick's benefit. I thought that was a brutal fight between Cameron and Rick. I think that was easily one of the best fights of the entire series. But will Cameron even listen to Courtney now? Did we ever get a cover story for Icicle's death? Cameron knows very little. I guess his grandparents told him a little bit, but wouldn't you think he would want to know more, want to explore what happened? But anyway, speaking of that Grandma Mahkent, she is just pure evil. And we got the reveal of the Ultra Humanite. I wasn't expecting that, so I'm assuming he was the camera watcher, but what's his connection to Mr. Bones? He was still doing that puzzle. I am hung up on that puzzle. Why was he doing it? But also, the signal was traced to the Mahkent's house, right? So, are Mr. Bones, the Mahkents, and Ultra Humanite, are they all connected somehow? I'm just wondering what's up there. And just a couple more thoughts. Beth gets the suit features unlocked. I know that was kind of a plot device, but at least it gets her into the action so she isn't just standing around every time there's a fight. I thought that was a clever way to bring her in. And Mike's mom, is that going to be more than just a touching story, or is there something more to that? That seems, we've only got a few episodes left in this series. That just seemed like something fairly big to bring in at the last few episodes. And finally, I want to give this episode 9.5 Norwegian sweaters, because that's all the Mahkents seem to have in their wardrobes. That's Father of Krypton.
Nice.
Well, you must have appreciated my bonus sound clip this week, then. But yeah, just remember, I don't think the signal means that it's the Mahkents. I don't think they're the one watching. I don't think it's Mr. Bones. It's somebody we still haven't been revealed yet. It's definitely not this Ultra Humanite guy at the end there. But that's me.
Yeah, good stuff.
Good stuff. Next up is Perry White.
Hey Cosmic Crew, Perry White here with feedback for Stargirl's episode, The Monsters. Let me get this out of the way. I really like this episode. I love every scene with Lily and Sophus Mahkent. The Grandcicles, man, they're just fantastic. I thought the fight scenes were well done, even if they were darkly lit. Anyone who knows me knows I hate poorly lit fight sequences. It just feels like a way to hide things rather than actually illuminate what you do well. Also, I always like the Paula Barbara scenes and the Pat Crusher scenes, even if it's part of an upcoming nitpick that I have. I also like the come to Jesus meeting they had at the cafeteria when Courtney told the team what she wanted to do. Most of all, I like Rick's response to it. If I were to give it a rating, I'd give this episode 9 jump starts to the heart out of 10. Now that I've got all the good stuff out of the way, let me thumb through my nitpicks. Here's the first one. The biggest issue I had with the episode is that Courtney opted to tell Cameron the truth without talking to Pat, Barbara, or Mike. Like Yolanda said, I mean, the secrets they keep are not just their own, right? By deciding to reveal the truth to Cameron, Courtney was ultimately placing her parents, Beth's parents, Yolanda's parents, well, maybe I don't feel so bad about Yolanda's parents, but essentially she was putting all of them in Cameron's crosshairs if this thing had gone terribly wrong, and it still might. You just shouldn't do that or decide to reveal that without at least talking to Pat and Barbara and Mike as well. I mean, he's the one that killed Jordan. I mean, he's the one that Cameron is going to hold the most responsible. And you don't even give those guys a heads up before you decide to tell Cameron the truth. That's just unreal. The other issue I had was with Rick and Yolanda. Once they got the truth about where the camera feed was coming from, I just thought it was irrational for them to sort of just go rushing into the Mahkent's house without any real plan of action. I mean, I sort of understand why Rick did it, because he's apparently hopped up on this hourglass rage that he's dealing with. But how could Yolanda, someone who is living with Courtney now, not even try to reach out to her before deciding to rush in? And, I mean, it seems like Beth is, quote-unquote, supposed to be the brains of this operation, right? It would seem that she would at least say, hey, folks, maybe we should develop a plan here. Maybe we should call Courtney in or do something. They just sort of rush in half-cocked, and that just seemed a bit out of character for them, particularly after the conversation that they all had in the cafeteria at high school. One of the third nitpicks I had was it just felt strange that Pat... well, I understand why he talked to Barbara first about the issues that he believes or the issues he feels that he's going to have or already has with Mike. And it just seems to me that, hey, if you feel like you're going to have these issues with Mike, sure, you talk to Barbara first. But the very next person you should be having this conversation with is Mike himself. Mm-hmm. And I know that sort of Crusher came in and he wasn't expected to be there. Pat didn't really expect him to be there. But it just seems strange to me that something as straightforward as, hey, I have an issue with Mike, it just seems it would be more direct to actually go and talk to Mike. But I guess you don't build up sort of drama and tension and those sorts of things unless you just decide to take the circuitous route rather than the more direct path. Anyway, I just had an issue with that. Here's my fourth nitpick. And while I thought the scenes between Mike and Jakeem were fine, it did keep us tethered to Cindy's story in a way. It's still just that their scenes feel like part of a wholly different show. They just don't integrate with what's going on with our show very well, other than there is always that reminder by Mike that, hey, we want to solve this thing before the other guys do. And that's really the only tether that we have to the rest of the show. And it's a loose tether at that. Let's see. What else did I have an issue with? I know it's sort of... I'm not always a fan of Deus Ex Machina, and I'm probably still not. But Beth's suit, right, having a combat mode, well, it was kind of fun and exasperating at the same time, if that makes any sense. I'm sure it's fun seeing her bewildered by them, but it's hard not to see them as a plot device. Also, I mean, how in the hell would Pat not have known about the aspect of that suit before? I would have imagined that Dr. McNider would have had, whether it was a beta test, and they may have mentioned that this was something new, who the hell knows. But it just seems strange to me that Dr. McNider would not have had some sort of beta test or some sort of like prototype combat mechanism for the suit while he wore it, and it just seems strange that Pat would not have known about it before. I don't know, maybe I missed something. Maybe they did say that this was something wholly new. I don't know. It just felt a little sort of strange and out of place. Anyway, I know it sounds like I'm down on the episode, but quite the contrary. When I love so many things about it, it's easier just to point out the things that I don't like. Anyway, I do look forward to seeing the fallout from the Cameron reveal in the next episode. And I'm also interested to see what the show does with this character who's apparently ultra-humanite, who I've never heard before. But from henceforth, I will always refer to him as Gorilla Grodd's light-skinned broham. Anyway, this is Perry White, making another deadline. I'm out.
Yes, you successfully got yourself out of the classifieds. No, some good thoughts. I mean, I think you're pretty much right along with us for almost everything you said. So everything that we said, it sounded, like you're right there with us. So Beth's suit, yes. You like it, you hate it. It's right there in the middle. It's kind of weird.
Yep.
Next up is someone we have been without for a while, a little bit longer than we've been without Harley. Here is Dreamweaver.
Hello, Cosmic Crew / Starfam, whichever we're using. Can't remember. It's Dreamweaver here, a listener you haven't heard from in a while, suddenly crashing in through a window to join in the conversation. Halloween is over, which means that my second job is over and I'm no longer working 7 days a week. So I have time to finally watch the show and respond again. And unfortunately, I do come back on the heels of the sad news of the Stargirl cancellation. And since we know all the changes that have been happening with Warner Brothers and the CW and DC in general, it wasn't surprising, but I'm still sad. Because that means we probably won't have a lot of the lingering storylines wrapped up or revisited, like Shining Knight from Season 1, and whatever happens at the end of the season will be it. We don't get to see if our characters actually grow more, and where they could go. TV seems to be really having a rough time right now. It was just announced that this upcoming season of Nancy Drew will be its last as well, so I'm out of a show too. For better or for worse, the CW is certainly gone as we know it. And I know what I said at the very beginning of this season, about coming into this to enjoy it and loosen my critiques more, and now knowing that there are only about 4 episodes left, I will try to enjoy it as much as I can. But I say that with a caveat, because I'm a bit happy I've missed sending in feedback for a few of the episodes, because I just really haven't enjoyed some of them. I like the Infinity Inc. episodes and how much was built up in just that first parter alone, and why hasn't that been a focus compared to the murder mystery plot that's barely moved since the 3rd episode? I don't know. Probably budget. Who knows? But, and I know I said I wasn't going to be as curmudgeonly and nitpicky with my reviews, but it's just, Flash, I know you said it because we've talked on the side, but it's been stiff and things barely moving along and not in the good way, and every character is just doing the same thing every episode. Anyway, I come off of that saying that I did rather enjoy this week's episode. Finally, things happened and moved along, and all those secrets that have been hidden literally collided and are out in the light. But first, I have one small note from the previous episode. When talking about the Helix members shown at the beginning of Infinity Inc. Part 2, Jeff, you said that one of them said Char Char, and you thought it was probably a replacement of Baby Boom. It actually says Carcharo, who is Man Shark in the comics, and weirdly enough is a biological cousin of Yolanda in his brief appearance in the comics. I doubt that they'll do anything with that now, but it's just a niche Easter egg. Huh. Okay. Now on to this week. There were some really good emotional scenes this week, like with Pat talking with Barbara about Mike and his mom and seeing if he needs to find some closure there. Barbara's line of, sometimes letting your kids face their pain is the only way to help them cope with it. Now, I'm not a parent. I have parents, and I know that a good parent, something that's always on their mind is how to protect their kids, and sometimes that's just not the answer, and there are things that you just can't shield them from. let their kids fight their own fights, because you just can't protect them from the world being the world. Which, to an extent, that's what the heart of the show has been. That was a really touching scene. It's reminiscent to Courtney having to deal with her biological father in Season 1. And another good scene was when Barbara calls Paula a friend, and she gets Paula's version of being choked up. That was nice to see, too. And then another, Yolanda and Courtney see each other, and they just hug. I think that said a lot more than if they had written dialogue between the two of them with that apology. And then later in the cafeteria when Rick says that he has everyone's back, no matter what, and he'll be there if things go south, even if he doesn't agree with them. That was really nice, too. It really shows Rick's character through and through. Even when we see just that anger on the surface, he really does see them as family. Which, in this current situation, I agree with Rick about Courtney telling Cameron everything. She should have definitely already told him about his dad, and probably about herself as Stargirl, but not about the whole JSA and the others' identities. Rick's right, that's not hers to tell. But we do see that it doesn't matter much in the end. But everyone had points in that scene. And Courtney, you were so close to actually telling Cameron, but you should have asked him, like, hey, let's take a walk, or let's go out to the garden first. That would have been much better than you trying to tell him in the house where she knows his grandparents also are. Also, the lead-in to that conversation was Cameron showing Courtney Jordan's work trophies. I don't know about you, but trophies are usually things that you say that serial killers have, and we all know Jordan's power set there. But it did lead to a fight scene that had some great moments. The VFX were great, and some of the moves looked really cool. But there was also some very convenient Deus Ex Machina moments happening, like Beth getting a call from her dad and telling her about the suit's combat mode. We all know, including Yolanda pointing it out, that Beth isn't a fighter. And not everyone needs to be a fighter in the JSA. That's perfectly fine. It was a bit comedic to the rather heavier side of the fight, but if they wanted to include that, give a small scene earlier in the episode to it where Beth finds it, or she and her parents talk about that mode, so that it doesn't appear out of left field in the middle of the fight. Then it's a setup and a payoff, in a rather big way. And speaking of coming out of left field, Artemis just appears out of nowhere too. I'm glad to see her again, but again, maybe give it a bit of setup somewhere earlier in the episode that says maybe she goes out on patrol at night or something. You know, just something small for a bigger payoff. Also, rip to Mr. Deisinger. Just trying to check in on a student, but he gets an icicle in the chest. Randy Havens survived Stranger Things, but he couldn't survive Stargirl. And then, of course, we get that reveal at the very end. They think they're tracking down Cindy, but instead find the Ultra Humanite. I'm sure Jeff has gone over some of his comic history already, but in whatever form he's been in, he's best known for mind swapping and being able to do mind control. And the gorilla form is just a favorite form he takes when he mind swaps. So, and also not to have him confused with the other DC character, the Brain, who's a literal brain who can take over minds, whose most loyal servant is a giant gorilla named Monsieur Mala. I see that DC really likes its supervillain sentient gorillas. Anyway, now the mystery is, what is the motivation for Ultra Humanite? If he was the actual killer, is he controlling the person down in the sewer, or who did kill the gambler? Or is the person in the sewer his human form? There's a lot more questions now. You know, the shadow and the trailer being smashed apart makes sense now, but Starman being lifted in the air by an unknown force doesn't still exactly. I think that there's still connections to be made and trails to go down, but this is an interesting twist. I know that it was offhand, but I rather like Jeff's theory last week that the person down in the sewer is being Jordan somehow. That would be really interesting, especially since his death is such a huge thing that is still hanging over so many of the characters this season. I still think Starman may not be fully himself, or being somewhat controlled when we're not seeing him. It would be really interesting if they threw some kind of twist that Ultra Humanite can control reanimated people. That would be something really interesting to see, especially if we do see Grundy come back at some point, maybe, because they left that at the beginning of the season. Yeah. I still think that's a possibility. We also haven't seen the gambler's daughter yet, and I feel like she's still got a part to play somehow. And also, since they were going to a place that Cindy was looking for, that was supposedly one of the Dragon King's places, I wonder if Ultra Humanite in this version maybe was an experiment or a partner to Dragon King. There's still so many questions, but I'm giving this episode 8.5 Snow Globe trophies out of 10. So that's all for now. I'm back in on the regular, so until next time, your friend Dreamweaver.
Oh, good to have you back.
Yeah,
excellent thoughts. Thanks.
With the amount of ideas you just came up with, Dreamweaver, we need another 10 episodes after the finale to fit everything in. But I also want to say, move over, Perry White. She's sneaking in to cuddle with us in the peapod of like-minded people here, because she pretty much felt exactly everything that I was saying. Good thoughts, yeah. Well, hopefully we cleared up a few of those questions for you. I know some of them that came up we did answer in the podcast, so hopefully she goes, good, now I know. Yeah. Good to have you back. That is all we got for you guys for feedback. So if you guys want to be part of the show, since Stargirl is now ending and you're only going to have 4 more chances or whatever many episodes are left to get in on this and have your say about what you think of Stargirl, you better follow these instructions so you can do that.
If you would like to be a part of the show, you can send in your feedback to Tomorrow's Legends Podcast at gmail.com. You can also reach us on Twitter at Tomorrow's Legends. We'd love you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/Tomorrow's Legends and become part of the community.
I don't think I've ever played that feedback jingle before.
No, I don't remember it. I was like, is that new?
Yeah, I have it here on the list. I call it feedback techno, because the other ones are Nighttime and Batman, because the one is the Batman theme. And I have just never played the techno because I don't know how I feel about it. It's weird, but I thought, well, we got a lot of tech stuff. I don't know. It's just a weird sounding one to me. Anyway, you guys can let us know if you like that one or not. So up next is Chapter 10, The Killer. Now, what could that be? Ultra Humanite? He's the one that killed... That's my guess.
Yeah,
killed the Gambler.
I don't know.
They kind of gave us the reveal with him showing up, I would imagine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But so that the characters know that he is a killer. So
Yeah.
So
as for this one titled The Monsters, well, it obviously could be the Icicle Grannies. It could be the monster at the end.
Yeah.
It could be the monster inside everybody, and they had to let out all the anger, right? Like,
yeah. A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. So. All right, well, that's all we got for you guys. Everybody have a good weekend. We'll talk to you soon. This is The Flash signing off.
This is X-Force 11. So say we all.
Tomorrow's Legends is not affiliated with CBS, Warner Brothers, HBO, or the CW. We're a fan-made podcast for entertainment purposes only and are part of the Cybercast Network. Be sure to check out our partner shows, The Mandalore and Dive into DC, covering your favorite Star Wars and DC Comics properties. Thanks for listening.